Hello, Gerard. Thank you for coming over to our interview, and we have the pleasure to have you sharing with us your experience working with Abbott. So, what's in your opinion the key elements in developing a successful relationship with Abbott?
I think the most critical element was the alignment of our goals along with Abbott's. They wanted to build their capability in China, and we needed to leverage our scale for both our distribution and logistics businesses in China. This gave us very critical alignment in terms of the overall objectives. So that was a key aspect of it. The next element was really demonstrating that both our respective businesses could join forces to effectively work together to achieve this objective and deliver on the ambitions that we'd set through our goals. What we ended up doing was we developed a two-sector development plan. One was in the east with Shanghai at its core. The other one was south with Guangzhou at its core. We tested 4 cities to see that the plan could work. And from that, we were able to scale up. We started, I think, with about 14 or 15 cities. We ended up last year at about 130 cities. This year at 150, and in 2010 we're targeting to get to 200 cities. So that was a fairly formidable scaling up that we've done, and I doubt we would have been able to achieve that if we hadn't aligned our objectives. The other aspect, and the thing that led to its successful aspect, was to ensure that we were clearly aligned. There was a responsibility of what Abbott was going to be responsible for and IDS was responsible for. They were there to create the demand, ensure the product was there. Our job was in terms of execution, from pricing to in-store merchandising, visibility, penetration, and all of those really led to the success that came out as a result of that. And I think to make sure that everybody was aligned from the top down, we had monthly reviews. And this really enabled us to ensure that we were on track and any deviations were corrected quite quickly. So that was, if you like, in a summary, the fundamental aspect of it.
So, people often talk about the importance of Guangxi when doing business in China. How important was that in developing Apple's business?
I don't think Guangxi is exclusive to China. I think that relationships are important to all business efforts across the globe. I think the most important thing is to develop credibility and trust with your partner. And I think for this, it required solid execution on our part. And if we did that right, I think that performance then led to trust and respect, which are, I think, underlying fundamental aspects of having a successful relationship. The 2 most senior managers of IDS and Abbott at the time sat down and every year set stretch goals. What this very quickly did was to develop a sense of very strong sense of confidence and trust, particularly with the respective head offices, both for IDS in Hong Kong as well as Abbott's head office in Chicago. They felt that the team was building by delivering their targets very clearly. There was an understanding of the strategies, there was alignment, and this led to an outcome where credibility and trust permeated not just at the operational level, but throughout the organizations, including the 2 corporate head offices. I think after the first year, this really started to snowball because the Abbott head office was prepared to increase the investment. This was matched by IDS, so it really became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And this translated to very, very strong levels of growth. I remember when we started in 2004, the net turnover was about $37.5 million US dollars, or about 300 million RMB at the time. We will close 2009 with sales at about 375 million US dollars, and that's slightly over something of 2 billion RMB. So a very, very significant growth level. And this remarkable record has now led to China being the 2nd largest market for Abbott outside the United States, which is very, very considerable and achieved in only 4 years.
That's really a remarkable result within such a short period of time. So what management qualities were required in order to build a successful customer relationship with Abbott?
We had to develop a very effective working relationship with not just the head of Abbott China, but also with all his subordinates that work with that. I mean, we were very fortunate. The head of Abbott was very direct and very clear in what his expectations were. And therefore, what we had to do was to really make sure that there was a line throughout all levels of the organization. I think apart from the alignment at the senior level, one of the critical things we also had to achieve was to really listen and take the time to understand each other's needs and perspective. That was a very important quality, because had we not been able to do that, then I think any misunderstandings would not have been able to be cleared up. We had to be a good communicator, and by that I'm not really talking about presentation skills or being able to talk to someone, but really it was the ability to listen and to digest and seek clarity. Because often, what one person wants, you think you know what they want, but you will find that there are little subtleties that make all the difference. And this became very apparent in our first year when we were working together. The other issue was being able to use the information that was generated. I think these days we generate far too much data, and the challenge is to take that data and making it into actionable information. So the ability to zoom in, look and examine the data, pull out to be able to clarify what needs to be done, secure alignment with Abbott, and then move to execute were vital aspects. And for that we set up monthly meetings. There were regular interface between the two teams to make sure that both stakeholders were clearly aligned so we could move the business forward. The other thing that I think fundamentally we needed was to be proactive, and I think this was one of the things IDS in particular did very well. We didn't really wait to be told. We actually picked up the data, turned it into actionable information. When we got to meetings, there was a collaboration where Abbott would say, how about this? And we would say, how about that? And from that, by having two different minds working together, we were able to come up with the best solution. Actually pulling the strategy apart in a meeting room was actually very effective. It actually ensured that once we did get out into the field to execute, it had a higher chance of success. And I think that really sums up what was a very effective working relationship. And as I mentioned in your previous question, led us to have the sustainable growth that's seen their business grow significantly, not just theirs, ours as well.
I'm sure there must have been periods of tensions and frictions in the relationship with Abbott. So how did you deal with this?
You're right. I mean, with every relationship, you are going to come across disagreements and different challenges. I think the key here was not to get emotional when things happened and to become naturally defensive, but rather one of the things we tried to do constantly was to go back to the facts. Because I think when you have the facts in front of you, it's far easier to ensure that you're talking on a base that becomes neutral, and rather than getting defensive, which I think extends the situation, doesn't move it forward. What we did was always listen to the issues, just re-clarify what was required to do, and then move on that basis. I think our relationship was based very much on give and take, and there were many occasions that we did have alignment, and quite a number of times when we had a misalignment. I think one case in point was when we failed to achieve a target. I think we missed it by 1%. So technically, we shouldn't have been able to achieve any of the objectives, or rather the rewards that came from that miss. But I must say, I mean, Abbott were quite fair. They obviously didn't give us the full recognition, but there was a partial recognition, and I think that went a long way to underscore the mood of both the teams, that we fought the issues very hard, made sure that we implemented them well, but there was give and take, and that was very important.
And what do you think will be required to sustain the relationship with Abbott over a long period of time, particularly in light of the rapidly changing business environment in China?
I think the key here is to be flexible and adapt to the changing environment. And by this, I fundamentally mean the competitive as well as the market environment, because you're right, quite right to say, I mean, the environment within China is, with all marketplaces, evolving very, very rapidly. So I think there are a few key tenets I would like everybody to keep in mind in terms of going through it. Firstly, one of the key characteristics would be the need to be flexible and agile, to recognize and take action proactively to address the challenges and tackle them accordingly. To be inclusive with your business partner, whether it's Abbott or other partners, it doesn't matter, but be inclusive. For example, with Abbott, one of the things we did was we involved them in the selection of downline wholesalers as we went to expand market penetration. So make it inclusive. Don't be arrogant enough to say that I think I know it all, I know what to do. The fourth factor is continuous feedback, because I think that really helps people understand the issues and the challenges. And I think by doing this, this was, I think, another critical factor that helped IDS and Abbott strengthen their relationship, because Abbott saw, as a consequence of these behaviors, IDS being a very transparent partner. We didn't hide behind anything. We took accountability when things go wrong. And this really led to a very, very constructive outcome, as we've seen by the results.
Last but not least, what lessons can you draw from your experience working with Abbott?
I think the key lesson I would take from this is that we should never take any of our customers for granted. Success breeds confidence. We see it in the sporting arena as well as in business. But we should be wary of becoming overconfident, because from that will come arrogance and then complacency, and then that tends to lead to failure. So I think we should always keep an open mind. I think the reference point I would like to take here was that there was an interesting article at the end of the last millennium where they said, you know, which was greatest power at the end of the first millennium, and it was China. And one of the things that they lost their power was because they decided they sort of knew everything and closed the doors and, you know, didn't let the outside world in. So we have to adopt a similar sort of a way of being outward looking, never growing overly confident. Retention of our customers are just as important as winning new customers. In fact, in some cases, more important. And I think it's really, we are in an extremely strong position today compared to 4 years ago. We have a menu of services which we can use to leverage this, and this has also been useful in being able to drive the business forward with Abbott. Project Compass, which is currently underway, will be a useful tool, and I'd encourage all our management team to embrace these new ideas and these new concepts that give us scale, leverageability, and more importantly, add value to our customers.